Alright guys, so welcome to part 7 of building my ICF house. So on this video we're going to be covering installing a poured suspended floor. You could call it an ICF floor, I guess. We got all our materials here for shoring up the floor. Basically we got to build walls every 6 feet, 16 inches on center, 2x4 wall with a double top plate, and then 2x6s spanning across them at 24 inches on center. A lot of you have seen this on my previous videos, but here is the forms that we're going to be using. They form this beam in the middle here. This is actually a 12-inch build deck, and this is a 10-inch build deck, and I'll explain why I have two different ones later on in the video. But for the purposes of right now, for demonstration, I'm just showing you that this is how the beam forms right here. There's going to be two number 5 rebars right in here with some stirrups going up every 12 inches. And that may be mumbo jumbo to some people, but I'll explain that as I go. There's going to be a column that goes up right here and holds up a beam that goes over there. And then there's also going to be another beam that goes over to this beam here. So I've got this all laid out where the plate needs to be. It doesn't really show up on camera, but here's a 12-inch plate that needs to go down. I need 4 holes. I'm going to drill them 3/4 of an inch wide and 6 inches deep. And I'm going to put a 5/8 threaded rod in there, and I'm going to epoxy it. Everything is a W8 by 31. 31 is the pounds per linear foot. While I'm getting this steel work prepared, I'm going to have the guys frame up the shoring walls. So we're going to need 3 walls at 6 feet apart. So one right there, and one right there. Pretty much where we had the bracing on the outside, that's where we need them. So from the wall out 6 feet, we're going to have a wall going all the way down here, 16 inch on center. It's going to have a double top plate and a bottom plate. And there's going to be 3 walls going down here that holds up 2x6s going this way. So these walls are going to be 16 inches on center. So what I'm going to do to make it easier to walk is put a walkway going right down the middle. So on all 3 of these walls, I'm going to make a doorway going down the middle so that we can get in and out without having to go through 16-inch bay. So we'll just put some headers on those, and then we'll just put them up one side at a time and just connect them. And I'm going to have them working on that while I'm getting the steel work going. On my plans here, it shows the details of the column base connection to the concrete. Here's another detail. So you can use a 3/4 inch base plate like they have here, or another option is you can use a 1/4 inch plate and then use 3/4 inches of grout underneath. Or you can use a leveling nut on 1 inch of grout, which that's what I'm going to do. So that is the layout. There's the 4x4 in the middle. That's 1/4 inch thick. Here are the bolts that go in it. So I'm going to drill 3/4 inch holes for my 5/8 anchors. Alright, so now I can let that epoxy set up. When I set it, I want some room around it so that it's not like pinching it on one side, making it not go in. So that's why I set these perfectly to this. And then I put an arrow here to make sure that we put the plate on the same way that it is right now. That way when we go to drop this in, it'll just drop in with no problems. I shim this up so that this is perfectly level right now, and then I'm going to take the column and put it on it and then level that up and weld it. So now I need to make the plate that goes on top of this column, and it's going to hold up the I-beam. The I-beam is 8 inches wide, and the plans call for 12 inches long. So I'm going to have 8 inches wide, 12 inches long, and then I got to drill 4 holes in it. This is the product I'm going to be using to set this post base. This is a non-shrink grout. Alright, so that's all grouted in. It's not perfect, but I can always put a second coat on it and taper it just a little bit more to cover up the first. Because there's a lot of structure in there right now. Once that dries, I can put a thin layer on the top of it. If you guys remember my foundation video, you remember I use these shear studs here, and I use them for the beam pockets to hold the beam pockets into the concrete. So I need to use them again here on this beam. This is a W8 by 31. So these concrete joists are going to land on top of this beam. So the beam is going to be set down, and then the joists are going to be poured on top of them. So we need one for every place that there's going to be a joist, which in this case, it's 24 inches on center. So if this is my outside wall where the beam pocket is, I'm going to start halfway with the first joist. That way, the first joist isn't directly against the wall, and I can't get something up to the next wall. What's also cool is the fact that I can sit up here while I'm doing this and walk on the desk of it as I'm doing it. That little chainsaw works good for cutting these because it's pretty thick and the sawzall blade kind of wanders on it. But I also found that it's best to cut inside like this because then you can vacuum it up. If you cut outside, it just goes wherever it goes and then you have no control over it. And then it goes everywhere. Little things like that make a big difference when you're on a project like this because when you're all done, you'll be forever trying to get that stuff out of the ground and out of the pond and out of all the water sources. Alright guys, so a lot of work got done last night and I wasn't able to film it because it was all dark and we were in a rush. This is our one shot to get this all done today, and then we got the holidays, so it was really important that we got it done today. Originally I was going to pour this and the utility room too, but we just did not have enough time to get that all ready. There's going to be a control joint here because this is an outside deck anyways, so that's not a problem. And then over in the utility room, that's going to be the same thing because there's an I-beam right here. So there's going to be a control joint right here as well. So this is no problem to pour this separate. So you can kind of see what's going on here. 2 number 5s in the bottom with a hook. There's the stud welded onto the beam, and then got our 3/8 stirrups. The 3/8 stirrups, we got 2 every 12 inches. That's what the plans call for. And so basically they just hold up the 5/8 from the 1/2 inch, and it gives it the strength because concrete, when it's got weight in the middle, it's got tension on the bottom, which means it's pulling apart, but on the top it's got a compressive load, which means it's pushing together. So it's taking some of the strength from the top and lending it to the bottom by using the stirrups, because the top is always going to have a compressive load, not a tension load, so it can afford to give some strength to the bottom. But I got the radiant heat in here. This is all spaced out from the foam about 1 inch. So I got the crane over there ready to go, and I'm not sure if I'm going to need it or not because I'm hoping that the concrete truck can pour from right there and right there. I put a load of crusher run right there and right here to ramp it up about 2 feet. So I'm hoping that we can get the chute over this. I'm hoping he can sit right here and just shoot it in. I know he's not going to have a lot of angle, but I put some good plasticizer in the concrete, so we should be able to pour it at a much higher slump, like a 7, and still get our 4,000 psi when we're done. So we got hot water, non-chloride accelerator, and plasticizer in the concrete. Small stone, 4,000 psi. So we're just waiting on the concrete truck. They'll be here in a few minutes. We finally got a pour in the morning, which is really nice. If you guys have been following this build, you know that every time I get a pour, it's usually later in the day. So hopefully we have a shot at getting this done before dark. So we're trying to fill up the beams first. Right. That's what they recommend doing. And then we vibrate them and then come back and do the slab. think we want to go back over there now.
I don't hardly have to vibrate.
Alright guys, so it's gonna get dark in a minute, so I'll do my little outro here. So my dad's just taking over for a minute. I've been on it for a while. Let me take you downstairs and see what it looks like. See, we got all our shoring walls here. These got to stay here for 30 days, but I'm going to leave it for probably 2 months because in the cold it takes a lot longer to cure. So you want this to be at its full strength before you take away the supports. And the full strength is 4,000 psi, and it's probably going to take at least 2 months in this cold to get to that point. Now I'm going to keep it heated down here, and I'm going to keep the concrete blankets on the top. So it's never really going to get below freezing. So that's one thing that might help it cure a little bit faster. But it's probably still not going to cure that fast like it would in the summer. So on my second floor, when I use the same system, what I'm going to do is put this C-channel in between each one. And basically what that does is it kind of grabs around this little rib right here, and then you can use that to hang drywall or wood or whatever you want. This is what I had to put on the side here, the I-beam here. And the concrete is right up to it. So the next video I'm going to do is going to be pouring the slab for the utility room as well as for this deck out back. And this deck is kind of special. I really think that's kind of a neat thing that anybody can appreciate, even if you're not in the building. It's gonna have some cool stuff to it. So on the next video, we're gonna pour those two, and that should be a nice easy pour. I'll have to use the crane for it because it's too high in the air. So this was a lot of work to get to this point. It definitely takes a lot more time and labor to do this than to just put in a wood floor. But at the same time, like if you want to run radiant heat in a wood floor, you have to put the plates in. And there's a lot more work in that. Putting the heat in this was no big deal. $300 worth of pipe and 2 hours and you got it. I'm actually not too worried about the finish on this slab either, because I don't really intend to leave it exposed and bare. I'm probably gonna epoxy it, but even before I epoxy it, I'm probably gonna get those pads that you can put down, like the 1x1 pads that like link together like a puzzle, just because I have kids. So I think that's the way to go for me. I'll probably do that in the basement too. So none of these floors are going to be exposed, but we'll try to get it troweled out as best we can anyways. Alright guys, so I'm going to wrap this up here and I'll see you on the next video.